We're live. We're back. Are we here? Yeah. Hi, everybody. It's time for the live author chats at the Bookfest Adventure Fall 2022. And I am so proud to bring to you two wonderful people, AG Billig, who I think everybody knows by now because AG, you're with us so often. You do so many of these, not only as a host, but you help produce and bring the whole things together, as well as Herbie J Pilato. Welcome, guys. Thank you for being our hosts today.
Thank
No
you.
sound. There's no sound. Uh-oh. There we go. Now there's sound. Can you hear me now? All right. I'm getting pop-ups all over the place. Let me start that again, if you don't
Okay.
mind. My name's Desiree Duffy, and I welcome everybody to the live author chats here at the Bookfest Adventure Fall 2022. And I am so proud to present to you A.G. Billig, which I think a lot of people know by now because she's with us doing a lot of these events. She helps host, she helps produce, she helps pull everything together. And we got a new friendly face with us. That is Herbie J Pilato. Hi, guys. How you doing
Hi.
tonight?
Hello,
Hi.
hello, hello. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. All right.
Almost.
This almost. I think Halloween, even more so than Christmas time and any other holiday, it seems like it's a season in and of itself, right? And it starts the second that first leaf falls from the trees, and we start putting on our scarves and our sweaters and things. So I do feel it's okay to say Happy Halloween. What do you guys got going on for Halloween anyway? What do you?
This is it.
This is it. Yes, right.
Well, okay, Herbie, let's start with you because you are a writer and a producer. You are a TV personality and you've got a lot of TV credits. And I know that I will miss something if I start trying to laundry list them. So tell us in your own words a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm the author of several pop culture books, classic TV books, really, about Bewitched and Kung Fu, $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman. I have a new book out now. It's The 12 Best Secrets of Christmas, which is very different than anything I've done before. It's about my childhood memories that I've universalized for everyone. And I had, my first season of Then Again with Herbie J Pilato, which was on Amazon Prime, a TV talk show geared toward classic TV. And I have new books coming out about Sean Connery, Diana Rigg, and a combined book about George Lucas and Steven Spielberg.
I love it. I love it. And really looking forward to your book for the holidays as well, right?
Yeah, it's a very, very special book for me. It's different, and yet it's not, because I tie classic TV into that book as well.
I love it. I love that through line, classic TV. It's one of those things too, especially this time of year when we want to get cozy and cuddle up with something that's familiar. Watching some of those classic TV shows is the best way to just kind of, go back to a time when things were a little bit simpler.
It takes us back. It's very comforting, especially, yes, today, at when we need it so much. We're all so divisive, and I think my books in general have always been positive, but this one is really super positive.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, we're going to be hearing a lot more from you once you start talking with others, and then we'll chat again at the end too. AG, how are you doing? Now, your stuff is not nearly as scary. Can you tell us a little bit about
No,
your books?
actually, this is not scary at all. So this is one of my books. I keep promoting this, although it's been 6 years. I can't believe it's been that long since I released it because just as Herbie J said, I mean, right now we need more than ever to come together and support each other and build communities. So we can only do this if we actually tune into the frequency of love. So this is my big theme in everything I do. And I guess this is what also unites us, Desiree, with the Book Fest and Black Château Enterprises and Books That Make You, because you are one of the people who are doing what they are doing for authors and the literary community because you actually love authors and because you love books and because you want to help them. That's
She's a sweetheart. You're
Yeah,
absolutely
she
right.
is. And so is Dave and everybody on the team. So What was the question again?
That's awesome. That's a perfect segue. I was just, asking you a little bit about your writing and your books and everything. But you're so right, AG, because we have a whole team back here. And when you evoke the name Dave, Dave just goes crawling into his corner because he is so shy, but it's probably one of the people that needs the most recognition because he's the one who's, people are talking, I love the beautiful graphics and the way everything is moving on the screen and the way the broadcast is happening. We couldn't do this without Dave. He knows stuff about a thing called OBS, which I can barely even spell.
What is that? I don't even know what it is.
It's something magic in the cloud that makes broadcasts happen. That's all I know.
Okay.
So it's around us right now. Okay.
It's there. It's all around.
But so tomorrow on Sunday, I know Dave is going to be in the spotlight with Brian and with you. So you're going to have an amazing conversation about things that are very interesting for authors building their author platform and stuff like that. So so if you want to meet Dave, guys, tune in tomorrow. I mean, it's worth it, I promise. I've been with this team for six years almost, so I know what I'm talking about.
Absolutely. Dragging him and Brian too. He's the other one who created the BookFest website and has created the Black Château website, client website. So bringing those two guys into the forefront, you're right, is really going to be a treat. And as well, thank you for kind of prompting me there to just thank everybody behind the scenes. We have a whole team behind us. They're in the chat rooms and they're posting links and making this BookFest possible. So thank you, everybody. So, okay, one of the cool things that we're going to do at the very end of these live author chats is announce the winners of the Big Bundle of Books giveaway. And we have the special kids book giveaways as well. And there is still time to enter. We're not going to draw the names until I think about 7:30-ish Pacific time. So look at your clocks, figure out when that is. I think you got about an hour and a half-ish to enter to win. Just go to the BookFest website. You can go on up to the top where it says giveaway and you can enter to win. And I really quickly want to say thank you to all of the authors who have donated books for that giveaway. There really is something for everyone, as well as our sponsors. We have prizes from Out of Print, from Fly Paper Products, from Vogue Translations, and Rise Brewing Company. And I do have my book bag here from Vogue Translations, which I say is one of the best book bags ever.
It's cool.
It's got a Parisian type theme to it. I don't know if you can see that, but just amazing stuff in the giveaway. So I just wanted to give a really big shout out and thank you to all of our sponsors for that. And like I said, you got a little bit of time, so make sure you go in and enter to win, and we'll announce the winners at the very end of these live author chats. Right now, I'm going to pull in the man that we all just listened to in that amazing conversation. It's Dr. Neil Bach-Oven, and he is an author and a scientist, and just did an incredible job with his conversation. Hi, Neil. How you doing?
Great, Desiree. It's wonderful to be here.
All right. So we have some people who have already asked some questions, and I'm going to throw a few of them at you really quick. And if anybody does have questions, that's another thing too. Relay them in the chats. We have that team in the background that can give us the questions, and we'll ask them there. So one of the first questions we have is if you can recommend a book to begin understanding our human origins. Do you have some kind of a starter guide or a book that you recommend for people to read?
There's a bunch of them, but probably a couple of my favorites are Who We Are and How We Got Here by David Reich. And it's all about the amazing learnings we're getting out of ancient DNA analysis. And he is sort of the godfather of that. His lab, as I mentioned in my video, puts out 3,000 full genome ancient DNA analysis every year now. And the very first ones we ever got were back in 2010. So you can see how fast the technology is improving.
I think that's one of the fascinating things about this. You were talking about the little bitty bones and the rapid discoveries that are taking place and how quickly things are changing in this perception. Because I know when I went to school, we were told we did not have any common ancestry with Neanderthals. And nowadays, everything's changing so fast. And I just got to say, I think one of the things that really strikes me about your writing, Neil, is that I have 2.6% Neanderthal DNA. And I learned that when I did the 23andMe. And get this, because your books are set in the Basque region, I have O negative blood. And I've always kind of wondered.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now tell everybody else why you just went, oh, interesting, because I think that's interesting, but I don't know if anybody else is going to make that connection.
Well, there are some studies that indicate that certain blood types originate from Neanderthals primarily, and that's one of them that may have. So anytime you can get clusters of data associated with a people that's been sort of protective of their heritage, you can learn a lot of things about ancient DNA from that. And that's one of the things David Reich goes into in his book. He studies cultures. There are Indian cultures over in India that are very exclusive and have kept to themselves, and they have their own set of diseases. There are the Jewish people that have their own set of diseases because they've been somewhat exclusive. And so you can learn a lot of things from studying those cultures.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's always the camp too. I've heard this one, that the O negative blood type is the oldest blood type, and it's also alien DNA. So who knows?
Yeah. Don't get me started on that.
I might want to. And
me too.
Yeah, you guys can jump into this conversation too. I don't want to monopolize Neil either. Okay.
Well, yeah, I think that's interesting. And because, there are so many people out there saying that actually, there is this whole theory of aliens who came to the earth and kind of created this experiment called the human experiment. So basically, we are an experiment I don't want you to get started on this.
Oh, no. Well, I'm interested in the Italian blood type.
Italian blood types. Yeah. Well, my stories are based out of Italy, so they should appeal to you. So
excellent. Yeah, no, Rod Serling was really one of the first people that brought this kind of thinking to the mainstream with Chariots of the Gods and the connection. That was like in the early 70s. He had a TV special based on that book by Eric von Daniken, if that is the correct title. So it's fascinating.
Yeah, and it's fascinating too. And I'll segue into this question here because it kind of makes sense. Somebody is asking if Neanderthals had bigger brains than modern day H. sapiens, then they were likely smarter, right? Thoughts?
On average, they did have brains that were slightly larger than ours. However, we had bigger cerebellums, the part right back here that's important in planning, language, and social structure. And a lot of anthropologists are leaning on that, trending more and more towards that as being that better social fabric, better social cohesion and structure is one of the key things that allowed us to outcompete Neanderthals. And so that's, I will point out that males have on average 11% bigger brains than females. So I don't think anybody's going to go around saying males are smarter than females. So anyway, I
no,
think
of course they're not.
It's pretty clear that that's not the case. So.
Tonight.
You're setting me up here coincidentally. This is not tonight. This is not planned. Somebody else asked if our brains are getting larger because are our brains getting larger because we can birth bigger headed babies with modern technology? I think that's in response to in your talk, you're talking about how hard the labors were back then. And
Right. Well, it's interesting that over the last 3,000 years, a paper just came out on this in the last few days. In the last 3,000 years, our brains have shriveled, have gotten quite a bit smaller over that period of time. People back in ancient Sumeria had much bigger brains than we did. Well, significantly bigger brains. And the question is, what's that related to? And it may be related to more farming and less hunter gathering. And one of the better solutions is that more people are more specialized. So you don't have to have as big a brain to know everything, because you've got people who are farming and people who are doing scribe work and literary work. And you've got people that are doing soldiering and so forth. So
Well, what
that's a pretty
about
cool paper just came out.
what about how we only allegedly use only 7% of our brain? Where does that all fit in the equation?
You know, I've heard that way back a long time ago. I haven't come across any papers that back that up or document it. I think we're using more of our brain than that. So
I hope we do tonight.
I wonder if writers have bigger brains or not, since we have so many
that's a
writers.
good question.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
think
and
my
also-
wife would say I have a bigger brain.
Well, look at how computers, though. I mean, they've gotten smaller and more sophisticated. So what about that?
Yeah, good point.
All right, we have a question from the crowd. Didn't Neanderthals have better eyesight than humans? Question. Is that related to their brain size?
Yes, indeed. They had bigger eye sockets, and their orbital area brain functions were bigger than ours. And there is some speculation slash belief that they had better eyesight, especially night eyesight, than we did.
Oh, so they could potentially run away from saber-toothed tigers and things like that, and probably.
Or they could hunt in the evening, and they were ambush hunters to a large extent. So the nighttime may have helped them with that.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
All
right. Go ahead, AG. Yeah, I'm putting them in there.
More questions coming in. So one of our viewers wants to know more about the Icelandic people and their DNA.
Yeah, the Icelandic people, it's a pretty cool, there's some pretty cool papers on that. They have, as a culture, they have more, individually, they don't have any more Neanderthal than any of us do. But as a culture, they have as much as 40% of the Neanderthal genome. If you collected all of it from all their people, as much as 40% of the Neanderthal genome could be recovered from them. So that was a pretty cool paper too. It's just, to me, I'm fascinated by that kind of stuff, and it just captures me. So I love reading about it and talking about it.
And
My
writing
friends
about it.
tell me I gush about it, and you can't shut me up. So
okay, really quick, because we have a few more questions and we are kind of running out of time. So your research for your books and for your book usually require a lot of time. So do you travel to any specific places or areas to do your research?
most of what I do is off the internet and through books and traveling to the library and back. So that's the bulk of that. I have been to San Antonio, which is close to me, but they have a cave there called the Friesenhahn Cave, where they found the remnants of nearly 100 Homotherium, which is the short saber-toothed cat. And those cats were dragging juvenile mammoths back to their cave. They have the remnants of about 100 mammoths in that cave. It's pretty cool stuff. It tells you a lot about what was happening back in the day.
Can you tell us in just a few words, what is your outline for writing a book?
Yeah, I start with a broad outline. I know how the book is going to end, and I know some of the major plot, what's going to happen at various times in it. But a lot of the action and a lot of the scenes are driven by the situation and the characters' personalities. And there are some days I walk away after writing and think, well, I didn't know that was going to happen. So it's a fun time.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, we like the questions just went crazy. We could go on,
Yes.
but we limit these to 10 minutes and we have Megan standing by next. Neil, thank you so much. You're amazing. I love
Such
your
a
writing.
pleasure.
Yeah,
It's
thank
been
you.
a pleasure. I enjoy talking about it, and you guys asked some great questions. Thanks.
All right. I'm going to pop out along with Neil and I'm going to pop Megan in. Okay, guys?
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Okay. All righty. Megan Akuri, author, playwright, and VP of the HWA, reads poetry and a Halloween tale of terror from her childhood. Hi, Megan.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you? Tell us
Good.
what is going on.
What isn't going on? There's
I-
so much going on. Yeah, I'm first of all, thank you for having me. I'm so happy to be here and be included with this great program. Like you said, I'm an author. I'm sort of a poet, which I'll be reading tonight, poem tonight, and I recently wrote a play as well, and I reconnected with. The gentleman who used to direct plays when I was in high school, and he directs plays in the district that I'm in now. And he said, "Hey, do you know of any plays that we could put on for Halloween?" Because I write a lot of horror, and he knew that. And I said, "Sure." I looked because I wasn't sure if he meant, have you ever written one, or is there one out there that would be good for high school students? And so I looked around and I sent him one, and he's like, "No, that's great, but I was wondering if you had anything that we could use." And I didn't have plays, but I had some stories, some short stories. And so I sent him one. I'm like, we could use this. And he thought it was a good idea. And it's actually based off of The Wicked Witch of the West. And he really liked that. And so they're putting it on next weekend, actually. So that's kind of the big thing that's been going on in my world.
Well, you have this, what my father would say, a smiling face. I mean, you just have that bright, smiley face. So how does that fit in with your writing? And
yeah, I mean, to be honest, horror writing wasn't something that I grew up, wanting to do. Even writing, I wasn't, it hadn't planned on being a writer when I was a little kid or even a young adult. But I became a stay-at-home mom about 16 years ago. And I just started reading and reading and reading as much as I could, because occasionally, as great as it is to be a stay-at-home mom, sometimes you get a little lonely. So I turned to books. And at one point I was like, oh, hey, I could do this. And I sat down at my dining room table and I tried to do it. And I was, struggling. And so my husband suggested a Borderlands boot camp that at the time was run by Tom Monteleone, F. Paul Wilson, and Doug Winter. And so I went. It was a 3-day hardcore weekend, like throw yourself in, throw your work in. But Tom, Paul, and Doug are huge in the horror writing community. And so a lot of the people who came were also either current or aspiring horror writers. So I just met a lot of people in that world. And one of the gentlemen I met was like, hey, you should write, you should submit a story to this horror anthology. And I was like, oh, but it's horror. I don't write horror. And he was like, oh, just try it. And so I did. And it was really, really fun. And that's really what because for me anyway, when I'm writing horror, I get to kind of adopt these personalities or these situations that I would never myself be a part of. So it's like stepping into someone else's shoes and really kind of like saying things I normally wouldn't say and doing things I normally wouldn't do. And so it's fun to kind of play around in that world.
just like many actors feel the same way. about
I
different
think
parts they
so.
play.
Yeah, and I imagine it's a lot of fun to play a villain, because, it's probably for a lot of the people against type and they don't get to do stuff like that. So it
Right.
is enjoyable.
If I may jump in quickly, I want to say that Megan is the vice president of the Horror Writers Association,
Yes.
and you've got a poetry showcase book,
Yes.
volume 9, actually coming out, and your poem is included in this book. So I'd like to invite you to read your poem to make sure we get it.
That
We
we
don't
get
miss
to it.
it. Yeah, and then we can continue our conversation.
Okay, excellent. So you want me to do it right now?
Yeah.
Sure.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, as AG said, it's the Horror Writers Association's Poetry Showcase, and this is volume 9. The title of my poem is How Do I Tell Her? I don't want to grow up, she says, hands gripping her fuzzy bear, mouth clinging to baby teeth, face soft with rounded cheeks, yet morphing, maturing. Do I have to? Will it hurt? Will I stop loving Fuzzy? I wipe her tears, rub her back, wrap her in my arms. Yes, sometimes. No. My hands caress the changes, inevitable, irreversible, unstoppable. An avalanche, a tsunami. I am powerless. More contours and curves, more passions and moods, more opportunities for words unwelcome and hands uninvited. I am powerless. How do I tell her the loss of peace, of innocence is possible? I don't want to. Thank you.
Yay.
That was a very good dramatic reading as well.
Thanks.
we have a question here for you. Let's see. It
Okay.
says, what advice do you have for aspiring playwrights?
Well, as I said, this was kind of my first foray into writing a play. I did take a playwriting class way back in college, but I can't count that so long ago. So, I would definitely recommend research and, something as simple as formatting the play. I had to, look it up. I Googled it. I bought some plays and, read them and looked to see, spacing and italics and just how are stage directions written. So definitely doing your research and also getting a sense, because you don't have the narrative in the play, but you have a lot of dialogue. So really honing your dialogue skills, I think, is really important. I think that's important for but really any type of writing. Particularly fiction. I love writing dialogue in my own fiction. So I found translating, or at least putting that into the play was easier. So definitely hone your dialogue skills as a writer too.
Tell us about the Horror Writers Association. I know it's a very active group.
Yes.
There's a lot happening. You're going to events like the LA Festival of Books. So
Yes.
how can people join your association, and what programs do you have for authors, and do you accept people? Because today is a day for the readers, but I know many people, they are readers before they become writers. So
Right. No, thank you. Yeah, the HWA, we have about 2,000 members. We are international. We have a number of chapters. We have dozens of chapters in the United States, including places like LA and New York, but also Wisconsin and a few in Florida, Utah, kind of all over the place. But as I said, we're global, so we have some in Ireland, Italy, India, and a number in Canada as well. So we have sort of the main organization, but then there are chapters, like local chapters. So if you live nearby, you can participate that way. And really, to be honest, we have multiple levels of membership and anybody can join. You do not have to be have sold anything. There we have what's our first level is called a supporting membership, and that's for people who are kind of dipping a toe in, or maybe are even just fans of horror and kind of want to be part of that community, talking to writers and being around literature and getting in the know, in the horror scene. So really, and then we go all the way up to a professional level for people who have made professional level sales and things like that. We have memberships for librarians, we have memberships for editors, memberships for academics. So really, it's a very welcoming and diverse group of people that your background could be literally anything, and we're happy to have you and have you join us.
What's the next big thing for you as an author, other than the play? So we know the play next weekend, that's when it's going to happen. So for you as an author, and then for the HWA.
Let's see. Oh my gosh. For me as an author, I also, the past few things that I've done have been kind of outside actually writing short fiction, because that's what I primarily do. I am working on some short stories right now and have a couple that I've put out there that I'm waiting to hear back from, which, as you guys probably know, is torture, is to wait and wait. But I also recently edited a short collection by Charlotte Riddell, who wrote in the late 1800s, and kind of I think a little after like Charles Dickens, like that era. And so she's kind of smaller time, but she's really a wonderful author. Does a ghost story so well, and it was a collection through Borderlands Press. They do a number of little book series. They're these really small hardbacks, small collection, and so I recently did that, and that came out as well. So that's personally, that's what's going on for me. For the HWA, there's always something going on with the HWA. We have a program called Horror University, which is really it's attacking it from an educational standpoint, both writing horror, but also different types of things like poetry, nonfiction. And we offer classes. They are online, but you can also get the recorded classes we have as well. It's on Teachable. So we're working on getting the next session together. We do maybe 2 or 3 sessions a year. And then we're also working on StokerCon, which is our big convention. That will be in June in Pittsburgh. So that's something, I mean, it's far away, but the planning, as you guys know from something like this, starts well in advance. So we're already deep into discussions about how things are going with that and the hotel and everything like that. So
sounds absolutely terrific. You are so well-rounded. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Megan. You're a sweetheart too. There's so many sweethearts here tonight.
Thank you both so much for having me. This was really great. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
And now we have another amazing guest joining us for the book fest, Jenna Green. She's a Canadian young adult and children's author, and she's also the host of the Jot Notes podcast. Welcome, Jenna.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hi, Jenna.
Hi.
Thank you for joining us. So, well, I'm curious. That's an intriguing name for a podcast. Jot Notes podcast.
We've gone through several iterations on several different networks, but I can humbly say that Jot Notes was actually my idea. I don't know where it came from. I think maybe just I am a Post-it note addict with little Jot Notes here and there and everywhere, and that's the only way I can stay on track as a writer, as a teacher, as a mom, as a wife. And I don't know, I just think of when you're writing, you have little notes everywhere, and somehow, some way, you have to pull them all together into a narrative and make a book. And so that's just what came to mind.
Yeah, I think I might have heard of an author that writes the books that way using those little notes. So this can be an idea. This can be a new way of writing. But what is the connection between the podcast and the books?
So obviously, I'm an author, but I'm a reader as well. And it's interesting to be able to talk to authors from both perspectives. Actually, three perspectives if you consider the fact that I'm an English teacher. So I can think about just reading and enjoying a book, but I can also think about it from the process of making a book and also teaching it and go from there. I have a co-host named Miranda O, and we write very different styles, very different genres, very different methods to our writing. So we're able to kind of talk about books and have that multiple perspectives and insights into writing. It's something interesting. You know, if you want to interview a teacher, have a teacher do it. If you want to learn about law, have a lawyer help with that. It's an interesting way to do it, but it really works because we understand what they're talking about and we can either commiserate or say, oh, I haven't tried that.
And children's books too, the genre, the category, whatever, it's just blown up, hasn't it, in the publishing world?
I think so. And it's interesting. I wrote YA. Everyone always asks, why write YA? Well, I started writing when I was 17. So all my characters were 16, 17. And then I always thought I would go older. I always thought eventually I would write an adult book. I haven't yet. But then now I've switched to younger students that I teach. I have a young daughter. So picture books and soon children's, early readers or even middle grade books. And it's amazing what you can do with them that you might not be able to do with an adult book. You might, but you might not. Or you can dive into the world just a little bit quicker because children and youth have a belief that they accept things. If you're like, you're a wizard, you're going to Hogwarts, okay. We do not have to explain the metaphysical reasons of why wands work. Here's your wand.
Yeah.
And you can just plot it out and dive right into the action and the characters.
What topics do you feel that young adult readers are most interested in today?
Oh, all of them. It's so hard to say because one young adult was so different than one other young adult. They like a lot of the different worlds. They love the speculative fiction, whether it be dystopian, whether it be high fantasy, but anything where they're just a slightly out of the norm. That's not to say they don't like the contemporary stuff. I mean, think of how The Hate You Give blew up a couple years ago, but a lot of the popular books have those fantastical elements that what if, what could be, and then what would you do in these situations is very, very popular.
What do you think is the reason behind this?
I think kids youth see the world through way different eyes than we do. Not only like what is, but what can be. And they really see the magic in the world, literally and figuratively, right? They look at a mound of grass and they're not like, oh, I better mow that. They're like, what's growing there? What lives there? What's under there? What's above there? They're always just thinking a little bit outside the box. It's interesting. I have a math class and we do problem solving, and the adults and the children never solve them the same way. They get the right answer eventually, but totally different paths. Adults are like, we have to do this, then this, then this. And the kids are like, woo! And they get the same answer and they learn so much more along the way. So just the ways their minds work, it's just amazing. In
30 seconds, what book recommendations for kids for gift giving this season?
Oh, dude, that's just hard. I think, well, I just read The Inheritance Games. That would be a YA book. I just read My Daughter, The Tale of Despero. That one's a few years old, but it's amazing. Of course, anything by me, self-plug.
Of course.
Anything and everything. I go to the classics, get the Hunger Games, go. There's a reason it's a classic for a reason, even though it's only like 15 years old.
That was perfect. Thank you so much, Jenna, for being with us tonight. And you have a wonderful evening. Whoa.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Gina.
Okay, Naomi Simone Borwin, poet
Wow, now
and academic.
that's an appearance. That's
Oh, I love it. I love it.
yes.
She's a poet and academic, reads poetry and discusses the aesthetics of literary horror. What does that mean exactly?
Well, I will read for you what I have a presentation set up, but basically it's the style and the effects caused by a certain lens or form of writing. And it depends on what genre you're in. So I'm going to take a moment just to explore a kind of unique sensory phenomenon or reality for some people to kind of help explain one type of horror aesthetic. Writing poetry can be inherently pareidolia. So pareidolia, it's sometimes defined as the tendency to perceive a specific, often meaningful image in a random or ambiguous visual pattern. So you can imagine that as the black spatter marks on a Rorschach ink blot test. Or, we're all kind of coded to see these faces and objects in everyday shapes in the visual field. So it's for instance, if you stare up at the sky and it's forming cherubs or odalisks in the clouds, or you're looking at the man in the moon or a rabbit if you're in the southern hemisphere, you're experiencing some level of pareidolia. And it's actually tied to creativity. I mean, it's very useful for artists and writers. Salvador Dali, his dripping clocks, those are thought to be a product of pareidolia. And you could just as easily think of it as a person sitting down to eat their breakfast and finding a monster forming in the contours of their scrambled eggs. That would be a form of pareidolia.
Hmm.
I wrote a poem recently called Pareidolia Phantasm, and it's going to appear in Ghostlight, the magazine of terror, in 2023. And one of the features of the poem is this slippage of imagery. Between immaterial and material, between states of being. And it's this shifting and transforming from object to object, which kind of punctuates it. The shifting opens up moments where fear, shock, and horror can kind of be drawn out and utilized as an aesthetic, as a stylistic device. Pareidolia can potentially make terrifying horror images and complex metaphors, hopefully. If you're looking at poetry, you'll want those. And it's done by shifting the logical structure of the horror moment and then the expected sort of rupture of that moment, which you'd get in the genre. The poem that I wrote, The Koi Factory, for the HWA Poetry Showcase 9, it kind of employs a variation of this effect. And I'm just going to consider two stanzas, the first two. And that's all. And then I'll unpack that a little bit. Her lungs slipped smoothly, inhaled into the cavity, breathing leaflets folding in like origami. The damp, delicate curves of packed insulation, thin, tissue-lined, elastic, creased contractions of the diaphragm, expanding, wet fold, and standing, cut to with each breath. The image of lungs folding is compounded by leaves as paper actions. Through the title of the piece, The Factory, where cheap paper and origami folding becomes an allegory for the deconstruction of the female body. And it's basically a dissection of definitions as well, through the point of view of a serial killer, the narrator of the poem. And the theme is also implicitly fed by kind of a fascination I have a bit with cold cases around the world. Locally, the legacy of the Highway of Tears. And that's a stretch of road in Canada known for having like over 80 unsolved murders and disappearances in Canada. And it kind of mirrors, is connected to this similar history around East Hastings in Maine and Vancouver. This is Skid Row in Canada. And they're both kind of among influences for the poem. The Picton trials were pretty notorious, which is this pig farmer who ended up killing women and then proceeding to process them and make them into sausages that were actually sold in Kitsilano and made into they were sold as specialty meats, which is quite horrifying. But the undercurrent for this poetry is this idea of the murder of scores of vulnerable women. So there's a subtle feminist kind of critique in there. The pareidolia aesthetic, it kind of leaches into the novel that I'm writing at the moment. It's a Southern Gothic set in southwestern Ontario, and there's this gruesome, if understated, history of the Victorian Bedlam system in Ontario, and the story kind of draws on a genre of the writings of like Emma Walsh, My Sunshine Away, which I think is a beautiful book. The Little Friend by Donna Tarrant, Midnight in the Garden, Good and Evil by John Barrett, and a book called Soil by Jamie Cornegay. And his narrative, it kind of employs Southern grotesquerie and these sort of quirky conspiracy and lascivious elements that kind of just very oddly intertwined into the contemporary moment. And there's one passage which actually I think comes to mind when I think about the idea of pareidolia, whether you're going to do a forensic analysis to try and backtrack the literary motivations for things or not, the way Virginia Woolf might have been, posthumously attributed with having a mental disorder, or the kind of forensic literary tradition, whatever. This passage is kind of surreal, and it's these bodies set in southern soil, and there's a sort of teleological ghost, and there's this craving for the blood-stained earth. It's just but where you draw the line between somebody employing pareidolia or slipping between slipstream and other surrealist elements can be a bit vague. But anyway, my novel is sort of set in the same actual physical place as the poem I wrote, Pareidolia Phantasm. And I absolutely kind of used that idea of pareidolia as a inspiration, but also a horror motif. And I guess...
we have a question here for you,
yeah.
Naomi. How descriptive should an author be?
How descriptive should an author be? My first answer is it really depends on what they're writing. As a poet, again, I think it really depends. There's so many different styles of writing.
And here's another one for you. Is pareidolia related to our fears because a monster in my cereal sounds scary?
And that's partly because it's a Halloween theme. But I think that we're drawn to seeing things that are familiar, and things that rupture or puncture that view with the familiar, become scary, become otherized. So, I'm sure there is a bit of a flight or fight and kind of mechanism underlying that, the psychology of pareidolia, among a lot of things.
And how long did it take to put up that spider behind you in the bed?
Not too long.
Well, it's horror and poetry and talent and creativity, and what it all mixes together is always something unique to the individual. And somehow we, at the same time as authors and writers, we somehow mainstream that. Do you find that a natural process, or do you work at that, or is that your goal? What's the deal there?
My goal with writing, or for instance, when I'm writing my novel, I started by actually getting a dictation app and describing in great detail everything that I saw in this particular area that became the setting for the novel. But things form, and then you pull on them. I mean, I don't know.
Well, Naomi, thank you so much for being with us tonight, and I hope you had a nice time.
Thank you.
I hope we were horrific. And I hope you can stick with us.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so it's time to say hello to our next guest. She's a children and young adult author. Welcome, Tian.
Thank you. It's so lovely to be here. It's really an honor. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for being with us, and it's such a joy to have so many different authors from different genres with us tonight. So tell us about your books.
Sure, I'll be happy to. Thank you. And yes, I've been listening to y'all all day long, so it's wow, incredible thing. So yes. Anyway, so my books, I have a lot of books out, at least for me anyway, 9 books. Tonight, I'm going to share a little bit with you, Charlie and the Tire Swing, and I'm very excited about it. And it's based on my son because he was the tire swing boy. So I'll share a little bit about that with you. I have, my books are based on being kind to one another, imagination, peace, and to love yourself. And then my young adult historical fiction, which took a while to write, is based on my grandma and Grandma Ruby, and it takes place in the 1920s. And boy, did I learn a lot. I wanted to wake her up from heaven and say, Grandma, you were holding out on me, because the 1920 history is fascinating. We always think to Charleston, but there's really so many things that we have today. For example, dating, or even the word teenager didn't come about until the 1920s people, because they were the first ones to start dating. So they were breaking the mold. So that's really exciting. And then I have some short stories. Earlier, you asked an author about some Christmas books, and I was like, oh my gosh, I know so many. So I've written a couple of short story Christmas books that'll be and some Christmas anthologies that are coming out this Christmas. But also, I just want to share with you, for your listeners too, that the Polar Express and the Littlest Angel, some of the classics are so fabulous.
I have a question before you. Sorry, before you read like an excerpt from your book, how do you switch from writing, because these are different genres, right? Short stories, children book, the young adult, especially in that niche. So how do you
manage that? I really rely on my angels. No, so I mean, yes, but anyway, I was a classroom teacher. I didn't start out writing. Matter of fact, I wish I could find all my English teachers and say, look what I've done, I can't believe it. I had all red marks on my paper because my imagination would be going so fast that, I didn't have all those commas in the right place, or the run-on sentences, whatever. So it's exciting. But to answer your question, a story comes to me, or a thought, when I'm out walking, or I'm listening to young children, and ideas pop in my brain, and it just kind of percolates. I'm in schools a lot, pre-COVID, now getting back into it. And I've lived all over the world. So when you're with kids from the Middle East, or, from the Philippines, or wherever, you find there's likeness of all humans around the world. But the one thing that, and so many things in common, but the one thing is to make sure all children dream, and to try to become the best that they can be when they grow up. And I really felt that my grandma, who was such an inspiration, and my mom and my daddy as well, that what she did as a woman, a young girl, born in 1904, you're supposed to get married, right? And she decided she wanted to go to college like the boys. And I thought, in today's world, if people can see that someone wanted to go to college so badly, and they saved money for it, and blah, 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 and then they reached their dream and they ran away to go to college, though their daddy found them. And you have to read the story. It's kind of fun, and paid for a college. But, the thing is, she had determination. And I just want kids to have that determination and know that you can do it. It might be hard, but just believe in yourself. And so it was very passionate. I never dreamed I'd write historical fiction. And I just want to say, all the authors who write historical fictions, I love you even more, because oh my stars, it is hard work. You want to get the language right. You want to get the time and the setting. As you can tell, I'm very passionate about it.
Okay, hold it 1 second. You just said, oh my stars, which is a favorite quote of Samantha on Bewitched, and I'm the author of the Bewitched book. Did you know that she said that?
No, I did not, and yet I should, because I
You
still
should.
watch reruns of Bewitched.
Yeah, she said, "Oh my stars." So.
Now I can see that she goes like that. Oh my stars, yes. Well, congratulations to you.
Oh,
Wow.
well, thank you. So reading to kids is so important. Tips for adults in reading to their kids? Do you have any?
Sure. When reading to your kids or your loved one, whatever it might be, just know my books are multi-layer, so there's a message for even adults in it. And when you read to them, just have fun, and don't just read each word. Let them stop you for a moment and ask questions. And that's what's great about Charlie and the Tire Swing. It's intergenerational. So it goes all the way to like great grandpas. And even though in our world, many of us don't, live in the family home of 3 generations, it can still inspire conversation. And that's what I want to have, is for you to have conversations with your kiddos, with my books, or with anybody's books.
I would like to invite you now to read, because I think everybody's excited here.
Sure. Charlie and the Tire Swing. Yes. Let me put my glasses on because I am of that age. One day, Charlie was looking out his grandparents' kitchen window at the big oak tree when he asked, "Grandpa Jack, how did that oak tree grow so big?" "Well, would you believe that tree was once an acorn?" asked Grandpa. Charlie looked up at his grandpa, a little puzzled, and asked, "Acorns like squirrels eat?" "That's right," chuckled Grandpa Jack. "Come, sit down, and I'll make you some hot chocolate and tell you a story." Well, Charlie happily sat down, and Grandpa Jack began to tell a story as Charlie sipped his hot chocolate. "One spring day in May, a long time ago, I was staying the weekend at my grandparents'. I asked my grandpa, that would be your great-great-grandpa George, if I could plant this acorn I found. Of course, he said yes, and so we walked to the side yard. That glorious oak tree is from the very acorn we planted. We dug a small hole, placed the acorn in the ground, and buried it. We gave it water to help it grow and put a wooden marker so we would not forget where we planted the acorn." The next day, I went outside to see if anything happened. There was nothing. I looked at the ground, and for some reason, I said, "Acorn, don't forget to grow." And I gave it a little water and went off to play. Well, every weekend, I would get to go to my grandparents' home, and as soon as I could, guess what I would do? "Yes, you guess. You checked," said Charlie. "That's right. I would go and check and see if my acorn had started growing. There was nothing. I would stare at the ground, and again I would say, 'Acorn, don't forget to grow.'" Several weeks went by and still nothing. I was worried. It might not grow, but I would look at the ground and I would say, "Acorn, don't forget to grow." Then one day, a big rainstorm happened, and I worried about the acorn. I was afraid it might drown under the ground, so I called Grandpa George, and he told me not to worry. He told me extraordinary things were happening underground with the acorn. I just had to have faith. I'll stop there. But the great thing about when you read it too is the kids learn patience, and you go through all the seasons, etc. And I love to animate when I read.
Yeah, that was lovely.
Thank you. Hope you enjoyed it.
What a lovely reading, and what a lovely story.
Thank you so much. That means a lot to me. So any other questions you might have, I'm happy to answer.
Okay.
If we have time.
In 30 seconds. Oh, no, go on, AG.
Well, I mean, okay, if I would pick one, what prompted you to write your first book? Because I think this can have a shorter answer.
Sure. So I've always been a storyteller. Even my mama would tell you the moment I came out, I was singing "Ah," and started. So I've been on stage, all kinds of things. But what prompted me to start writing books is I was in the garden working, and something told me it was time to put the stories down. And I would say to anyone listening, we're all storytellers. Every time you share what you had or what you did today, you're telling a story. So if you have something burning inside of you, just start writing. And I'm happy to help anyone free of charge to get started and inspire you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you. It's been quite an honor and a pleasure to be with y'all. And I hope to see you again. Take care, everybody.
See you later,
Thank
Gina.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Genevieve Flynn, I love that name, Genevieve.
Thank you.
An award-winning horror author, poet, and editor, reads tonight from her poem from the Horror Writers Association Poetry Showcase, Spoon Against Bone, and shares 3 easy but essential self-editing tips. Welcome, Genevieve.
Thank you. I feel kind of awful coming after such a lovely reading with Spoon Against Bone.
Well, it's all about diversity, and I'm sure whatever you're going to read is going to be lovely as well.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm very excited to be here. Do you want me to start with the poem? Just go straight into it, or?
Sure. Go for it.
Okay, my poem is Spoon Against Bone, and it's a slightly modified ballad. And it's an ode to the struggle against our worst impulses, whether that battle belongs to you or the person you love. Spoon against bone. A studied frown, a welling red. Your knife, it carves in bloody rows. I know what I'm doing, you said. You slice and scoop out adipose. Your heart, a mouth, open and close. It pulses, panicked on its own. I tried to stop you, but God knows why you scrape your spoon against the bone. The call of it sings in your head. Been through this, but that's how it goes. The hole inside you must be fed. Who put it there, do you suppose? It tells you truth. Listen, it blows inside me too. I hear it moan. It cuts my face and spites my nose. Still, you scrape your spoon against the bone. How much more now we've both been bled? Both of us peel, metamorphose. Leave me, you say. I won't be led. I only need one for the road. The next, and on it flows. You huddle, greedy, all alone. No longer see me in repose. Watch you scrape your spoon against the bone. I'm tired, my love, down to my toes. There's nothing left now that you've shown. All I can do, wait for the crows, as you scrape your spoon against the bone. Thank you.
Very sweet. Very sweet.
Sweet?
Sweet, and the way you read it was sweet.
Oh, thank you.
And lovely. So where does that come from?
I think I've got a background in psychology, and one of the things that really struck me was the idea that you can't actually change somebody or help them until they're ready to change or help themselves. And particularly with things like addiction or self-destructive behaviors, whether or not you're the person suffering from it or you're the person that's watching a loved one suffer from it, it's that feeling of they're just consuming themselves. Even though you can see how destructive it is, or they know how destructive it is, they're just consuming themselves until sometimes there's nothing left. So very sweet.
Well, we have a question here. How can someone write poetry as beautiful as yours? It's still beautiful.
I think if you love words and you just dive in, that's how I came to writing poetry with the it's a Bram Stoker award-winning collaboration that I was part of called Tortured Willows, Bent, Bowed, Unbroken. And it sort of follows on from Black Cranes thematically. And it's all about the experience of otherness for Southeast Asian women. And it's some of it is angry, some of it is heartbroken, some of it is very direct, but a lot of it is beautiful. And I took part in that collection with no experience in poetry. And I was just invited to join in. And I think that's how you start. Just dive in, play with words, and just let them flow, I think. I'm sorry, that's probably not very technically helpful.
I think it's all about inspiration and tuning into that energy. But as a poet, do you ever edit your poems? Because you're an editor as well. So how does that work?
I do. That you can, when you first write a poem, it might just pour out of you, and then you go back and you think, oh well, I want to have a slightly different turn of phrase, or I want to use to present a different image. But I think you're right. It's just allowing the emotion to come through, and being very honest with what you're trying to say as well. So sometimes you can think, oh, I don't want to be that vulnerable and that honest about something I feel or experience. But if you're able to, then I think it touches people. I think that they can feel that resonance in the poem or the short story or whatever you've written.
And since we are touching on this topic of editing, and since we have authors joining us tonight, what would be the top 3 self-editing tips you could give them?
Okay. The first one, which seems kind of obvious, is follow the guidelines, follow the submission guidelines. And people think, oh, that seems so obvious, but you'd be surprised how many people ignore them or don't try to follow them. And it's one of the easiest ways to get your work, if not accepted, at least looked at, because you're showing that you're easy to work with and you can follow directions. And there's often really good reasons for submission guidelines. There may be for it helps to standardize things for editors who are often very time poor, and it lets you know exactly what they're looking for. So if you can follow them, then that's probably one of the top tips I can give. The second, and it's one of it's a really common issue that I see in manuscripts, is to make sure that your dialogue punctuation is consistent and correct. And so many people, I don't know why, because you think if you're a reader, you'd pick up on some of the dialogue punctuation, but it's actually really easy to correct. You just have to have a good resource. And as long as you've got consistency, that means it's not distracting to the editor or the publisher, and they can focus on your story. And the third would be watch out for filter words. Filter words are things like saw, heard, realized, noticed, and it just keeps reminding the reader that someone's telling the story, and it creates a bit of narrative distance. And you can use them because they can help to clarify what's happening, or it can make create a more contemplative tone to the writing, but just watch how often you're using, and that you're using them with intention.
Genevieve, your name is even poetry. Genevieve, it's poetry. Do any of your poems tell a short story?
I have written longer poems that are that do have a narrative to them, but I just tend to play with whatever takes my fancy at the time. But yeah, sometimes I do tell a story with the poems, and they're often all dark.
Do you do live presentations of your poetry?
Only things like these readings that are part of conventions and festivals. I haven't stood up and done like poetry slams or anything like that. I think my heart would give out from the nerves.
Well, you're doing fine tonight.
Thank
Excuse
you.
me. And we certainly have loved having you here and appreciate your time with us. And we hope that you have had a joyful experience with us tonight.
It's been wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Genevieve.
Okay, time to say hello and welcome to our next guest. She is a speaker, she's a podcaster, and she is an award-winning USA Today bestselling author. She writes both fiction and nonfiction books, and her name is DC Gomez. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Hello, good evening. I'm so happy to be here with you guys.
Hi, DC.
Hello.
That's amazing having you here. So what was first, fiction or nonfiction?
Fiction. I am originally a fiction author, and it's interesting because I started writing urban fantasy. So I write a lot about witches and angels and all that fun stuff. And then I went over and started doing nonfiction in terms of doing devotionals. So the joke is, why does the girl that does a whole bunch of magic is now writing devotionals? And I usually tell everybody, why not? I write a little bit of what I enjoy doing. So that's kind of one of the blessings about just being open to whatever the spirit calls you to do.
Yeah, I totally agree. So you grew up in Salem, Massachusetts, with witches in your backyard. Explain this to me because I'm really curious now.
So here's the kind of the background. I live currently in Texas. So I'm in East Texas. I'm in the Bible Belt. But I grew up in Massachusetts. So I grew up in Salem. So one of the things that I don't think I realized, everybody in the States doesn't have the same experience when it comes to history. So everybody's not so familiar about the Salem witch trials. So growing up, I literally went to school where people that were Wiccans. I had people when I was volunteering that were witches. And they were practicing witches. So one of the things, yes, so this is kind of the world of magic, the world of fantasy has been something that I grew up all my life. So when I tell people in Texas that I'm from Salem, they're like, oh, now that makes so much more sense. I was like, really? Why not? So one of the things that I'm working on now is I promised my mother, and I think we all make our mother's promises that we all want to keep, that I was going to make a book taking place in Salem. I obviously did not think my mom was going to remember these things until she goes, so, I know you're all laughing like, oh, and then that question came back, when is that book coming? So that's kind of one of my big projects is taking everything back home. It is making a book that takes place in Salem that deals with a lot of the, hey, what if we had an entire underground and obviously very open coven of witches that are trying to figure out the mystery behind a whole bunch of like madness happening.
Sounds great, and yeah, now I'm looking forward to reading your books, especially that Halloween is next week. I think that's the right time.
Yeah.
You are a USA Today bestselling author, and this is sound so glamorous. I mean, every author wants to get this and be able to put it on their front cover. How did it happen, and how did it change your career?
It happened, I want to say about three years ago. I did an anthology with amazing authors. And it's one of those things that I have to kind of always tell every author that has never tried to do a USA Today's bestselling run is it's going to be a lot of work. It's one of those things. I don't think I have worked this hard for anything else in my life when it came to my writing career. It was a good 9 months to a year of prepping a lot of promotions, a lot of trying to understand the process. And like 3 years ago compared to now, things have changed drastically in terms of it. But it's understanding that it is a number system. Is you have to hit 5,000 to 6,000 copies of this book within that week that gets released in order whatever you're trying to do. And it can't be all Amazon numbers. It is all a combination of all these things. How did it change in my career? It gave me a whole new appreciation for writers who are sellers, who are doing this every day. And it gave me an appreciation of how much work it takes to market a book to this level. Because I don't think I was prepared for it. I was like, oh, how hard can this be? Oh, yeah. Nobody explained that. I was like, I think if somebody honestly would have told me, this is what you're committing to, I would have been like, I might have to rethink this plan because this is not what I was prepared for. So it really gave me a whole appreciation of the business and everything that comes into play with it.
We got a couple questions here for you. Have you ever met someone who had a spell cast on them? And number two, what is it like in Salem this time of year?
For the first one, I have not. I've heard people that have told me they have had it. I haven't actually met them while they were dealing with the spell. So I don't have that experience of being able to, because I'll be the kid asking 500 questions like, how does it feel? Are you okay? And how do you get it off? Like, I really want to know, like, how do you get rid of this? So I have not had that opportunity. Probably a good thing for them because I probably drove them insane. Salem, yeah, I would be the one like, they were like, DC, go away now. Salem this year is probably the best place to be, unless it's like February Carnival in Dominican Republic. But it is absolutely an embracing of all the magic that you can imagine. So my mom called me up in beginning of the month to brag because they start what we call haunted happenings in Salem with a parade. So there is a Halloween parade that kicks off October. So Salem claims it is amazing that they have 5 seasons. You got the regular ones, and then they have October. So it's
Correct.
so if you've never been to Salem in October, it is absolutely as much fun as you can possibly have as an adult in an adult like, Disneyland.
You know, besides you, DC, you're the second DC famous author and talented writer that I've met now.
Aw.
DC Fontana from Star Trek. I don't know if you know that name, but DC Fontana was one of the story editors on the original Star Trek. She was an assistant to Gene Roddenberry, and that's how she got into it. So I'm honored to meet a second DC so talented today.
Such a pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. I'm having a blast.
We have another interesting question here. Have you ever met someone who had a spell cast on them?
No, I asked you that already.
You asked that?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, have you ever considered diving into witchcraft a little bit just to do some research for your books?
So one of the things that I realized as an urban fantasy writer is that we do a lot of research. So one of the things that I've been doing is a lot of very much research in terms of holidays. Like, what are some of the major holidays that are celebrated? And I realized there's so much crossover when you're looking at Wiccan, pagan, and almost modern day, religious in terms of things. So you'd be surprised how many things we all celebrate that has a pagan background that we normally take for granted. I didn't realize kind of the origins of Halloween and kind of what we're trying to do by keeping the spirits away. So Halloween for me is probably it is my favorite holiday. It is also one of those holidays that is just kind of gives you an essence of that, other world kind of feel. Like we all get very childlike. And then you add, November 1st is All Souls Day. Then you got November 2nd, which is the Day of the Dead. So if you're looking at it, there is that essence of like, there's magic in the air, whether we believe it or not. I think it's always a powerful thing. So yes, I do lots of research when it comes to that. What is it that I want to bring into my books and how do I bring them to life?
Magic seems like such a natural extension of us. It's like something in our souls. Again, I need to bring up Bewitched again, but when I would watch that show, I'm like, I can feel like I can do that. So what is the fascination with witches in particular in magic?
When we're thinking about it, if you are Christian, or for me, for Catholicism, you can replace the word magic with miracle, and we're still the same. We're still praying to our higher being. We're still believing things that are not possible will become, real in our essence. So it is that idea that there's something higher than us working together to bring these incredible things to life. So sometimes I think it's that power that is something in us that can bring, beautiful things to creation. So I think we all have it. Sometimes we pray for miracles, and whether you call it miracles or you call it magic, we all have an essence of believing that there's something more out there in this world.
Then we're pretty much all very much alike, more than we think we are, then, correct?
Absolutely. Oh yes, every single day.
Before we wrap up, we have a few questions here, but there is one that really pops up. What do you know about witches that would surprise most people?
One of the things that I think is very surprising is a lot of them are practicing and you will never know. So we have a lot of practicing Wiccans around the country that sometimes you would never realize it unless they told you. So I'm always amazed how many people are practicing that you just never knew they were there around you.
Wow.
So.
Wow.
So be careful. You never know who's around you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I see some people with you in the room, Herbie J. I mean, not sure what they're doing there.
They might be talking to you, so
Sure.
let's be careful.
Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, DC, I love saying that too. DC Gomez, thank you so much for this brightness that you bring to the witch world and to the
Mhm.
magic that you bring to the writer world.
Oh,
Thank you so much.
good night.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Our next guest is Mariavia Farkas, author of Overcoming Deepest Grief, A Woman's Journey, discussing how we can overcome our worst fears and our worst pain. And I have to say, this resonates with me. I served as a primary caregiver to both my parents in their later years, and I was there when both of them passed, and I was caring for them for 13 years. So I unfortunately know all too well the experiences of grief, and so I'm very interested in hearing what you have to say tonight.
Thank you so much, and I want to thank the Book Fest. This afternoon I was notified that I received a Silver Book Fest award, as well as an honorable mention from the Book Fest. So my book had already won 2 separate awards, so this is now the third, I don't know if I could say third and fourth award for my book. So
Fantastic. Congratulations.
Thank you. So thank you, BookFest. Okay, so Herbie, did you ask me a question? Because I was
I was just, I'm very interested in hearing what,
okay. Sorry.
Your perception of the grief process, what it all
Yeah.
means in the human condition.
Yeah, thank you. I was thrust into an intimate knowing about death. I held my dearest sister, literally, I held her as she died. She was in my lap. And then less than 6 months later, I came home to find my wife of 18 years dead in bed. She had died in the morning. I left for work, didn't know she had died, and came home and found her. And then that threw me into this horrible, deep depression. And part of that depression was caused by her family. So I've been a lesbian for almost 50 years. I'm 74 years old, and I came out at age 25. And I have watched how the world has totally mistreated LGBTQ people. And now there's some acceptance, and yet we now have this backlash. So I think we're living in this interesting time. But the families, when you are with someone of your same sex, the families often couch their dislike of your relationship. And what happened after, and I had been married to Margaret for 18 years, and after the memorial service, all of her sisters, her 6 sisters and their husbands, came to the house and literally plundered. They just went around every single room and took what they wanted. And then, to top it off, a moving van driven by her ex-husband drove into our driveway, and they just took out furniture. So that compound, it was kind of like you have the dagger thrust into your heart, and that compounded things. And so I just spiraled into this horrible depression. And I just have to say that people should know that this happens a lot, and it is not unusual for it to happen in the gay and lesbian community.
Yeah, it's compounded, as you say. You have
Yeah.
there's grief and grief, two different griefs.
Exactly. And but I don't want to dwell. So actually I want to do a little reading, and the first thing I'm going to read, in fact, is about grief. But what happened was I came to realize that if I didn't like take the bull by the horns and literally begin to change my neurons and my neurotransmitters, because the brain is plastic, the brain can change. And I realized that if I didn't do something drastic, I would stay stuck and suicidal. And so what I started to write, and literally the book that I wrote changed my life, and it saved my life.
Okay, let's we've got 4 minutes
I
here.
have a question before you read, because
Yeah.
it ties into what you just said. So for you, writing was the thing that basically helped you come back to light, so to speak. What other things can people do who are going through a similar situation to find inner peace again, and to
Well, to know that change will happen. Our world is always changing. If there's anything constant, the constant is change. So to know that we will change, situation will change, to know that, number one, to accept what happened, because so many people just don't accept what happened. And I have a lot to say about that in my book. But also, AG, to want to change, to just really desire a turning in yourself. And that is fundamental.
Okay, thank you. And we've got about 3 minutes left. So
Okay.
we
So
are
read. Okay.
Yeah.
So so grief. You will encounter this cloud, this pit, this unimaginable horror, this being slowly dragged through hell inch by inch, this total wrecking, wrenching of your soul, which incites feelings so dark and hopeless as to wish for your own death in the path of shock left by the death of your beloved. As you age, you will surely encounter death, loss, grief routinely, with hope for longer breaks between abject, raw feelings versus the daily joys of life. Overcoming the pain of grief will take time and fortitude. Will take being clear that you will move forward. You will not remain stuck in the mire of grief's morbid pain. Moving forward on this path is a true journey, was a true journey of my spirit, my will to live, my soul. I came to fully embrace my sister's dying wish to go on dancing, to go on living, to not stay stuck in grief and pain, to move on. Acceptance means to vow to go on living. And I just have one other brief thing I'd like to read. Orion, I salute you, mighty Orion, visible each clear night, taking up a goodly portion of my southeastern sky. Standing bold and strong, fearing no one, nothing, you command without ever bearing your sword. I cherish your existence, the fact of your being, the fact that the light is dim enough to see you. You bring me great peace, comfort to my heart, to know that the elements of the sky persist regardless of our place in the world, to know that the moon will wax and wane each 28 days, that I can greet the tiniest sliver of the new moon, my favorite moon, never failing to bring a smile to my face. For those who have lost much, the permanence of these lights, these suns of other worlds, planets and moon of our world, allow us to appreciate our place in this vastness. May my heart return to the stardust from which it was created.
Just lovely, just lovely. And would you say that the best advice you could give anyone in your community and beyond your community is that we all grieve in our own way and don't listen to anybody tell you how to grieve?
Oh, definitely not. And take your time. Take as much time as you need.
God bless you, Avia. God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And for all of you who are watching now, know that you can find all the authors' bios and the books on the Book Fest. So you go there, you go to the speakers page, you can find the website, you can find the books. So just go there and check them out because they're really, really worth it. Thank you so much for being with us tonight.
See you later, Avia.
So now we have another guest.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Austin.
Hi. So he's a writer, he's a poet, he's an editor, he's the editor-in-chief at Space and Time magazine, and he's here with us today, and I know he has some special treats. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. This is super exciting, and it's been lovely to watch all the other panels and see what's going on. This has been awesome.
Thank you for being with us, and I've been, reading your comments in our private chat, and thank you for all your positive energy and supporting the authors. So let's start with you before we dive into our conversation. Let's start with your poem, because I know you have a poem you want to read tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. So I have a poem here called Photography Post-Apocalypse that appears in the HWA anthology. And I won't give it any prelude. I guess I'll just answer questions. But photography post-apocalypse. Devils craft cameras from lenses our founders left behind. Curved glass and metal frames once connected to spines. Perfect eyes capture souls. You are among them, slight, ensnared, weak. Kim-laced strips rolled to weep. Few yous are left. Soon they'll be gone too, in canisters just like you. Post-eyed and transcribed, but devils did not anticipate what our world might be without you.
Wow. So space and time and spirit, it's not really that different, is it?
I agree. Yeah. It's our founder Gordon Linsner has joked that the name isn't very original, but I think that he nabbed the name back in I think it was 1962 or so. I might be getting my year wrong, but I think he nabbed the right name because there isn't another literary space and time magazine with that name.
Well, yeah, and yet at the same time, I mean, obviously, poetry is a very spiritual, philosophical thing. It's two different.
Absolutely.
Explain the dichotomy of all of that.
Yeah. So I guess for me, I can say that the space that I operate in when I'm writing prose versus when I'm writing poetry are two totally different areas. And of course, doing editorial work is its own whole thing. But when it comes to creating, with fiction, for me personally, I need to go in more with a plan and kind of have it mapped out, have a set of rules. I know my characters. I sort of know what beats I want to hit along the way. I'm not a super strict outliner by any means, but I do like to have a roadmap. Poetry is just the opposite, and I feel like I can't even plan to write poetry to a particular theme very often. I've done it before, and it's very hard. But poetry seems to exist, for me at least, somewhere more out in the ether. Poetry is the stuff that comes up, and it may just be a line or a phrase or even a pairing of words that you have to immediately kind of capture. And so, yeah, for me, I think prose is much more, for me personally, much more, chop wood, carry water. There's a story to tell. And there's a lot of craft that goes into writing a good story. There's a lot of tools that you have in your toolbox that you can leverage, and most people can learn how to write and tell a decent story. I do think that there's a certain amount of innate talent and gift and kind of the spiritual in there, but you can learn how to use certain tools to evoke certain reactions. However, with poetry, I've studied poetry under some of the most brilliant poets that I've just been honored to have been in the room with, and there's not really a way to teach it, though. Unfortunately, you can take all of these classes and courses and be around lots of poets, but nobody really has those concrete, tangible things that you can grab onto. It really is more what works for me, and floating your way through methods as you discover how poetry works for you.
So it's obvious that men write poetry. I mean, you are a man, but
Oh yeah, last time I checked.
do men read poetry? What's the situation in that department nowadays?
Oh, I think only cool men read and write poetry. Honestly,
Yes.
I mean, yeah, no, you're absolutely right. There's this stupid stigma around poetry.
Yeah.
And I was very fortunate, I think, to grow up around a father who was more of an academic rather than a meathead, and a mother who was very involved in local politics and public service, and lots of very strong women around me as well. And so I never really got exposed to any of the toxic masculinity stuff that does that. But I've seen a lot of people break away from that, so it's an easy thing to kind of get out of. So yeah, we are out there. We might be a little harder to find maybe in the realm of poetry, but we're here.
But we'll find you. We'll find you definitely. And I know you have you want to share a story with us as well.
Yes. So yeah, I'll try to. Gosh, I don't know if I'll try to cram this into 3 minutes. So yeah, I didn't really have anything particular to hawk out to everybody. I'm currently querying a novel, writing another, working on putting together a poetry and short fiction collection at the moment. But so I figured I'd share something spooky. I used to work in a school district here in Missouri, in Liberty Public Schools. Liberty, Missouri is one of the oldest cities in all of Missouri. The Donner Party passed right through there as they left my hometown of Independence to meet their fate. So I worked in IT there. I managed 3 elementary school buildings. All of their kids were one-to-one with devices, which means every single child had some sort of device. My elementary school buildings, it was K through 4th grade had iPads, K through 2 had iPads, and 3 through 5 had Chromebooks. It's a lot of devices. And between 3 buildings, if something that had electrical current running through it was broken, it's my job to manage it, fix it, and get it up and running. In preparation for the next school year, though, we do these long, tedious tasks of labeling all the devices throughout the buildings, just sticking stickers on them with the child's name according to the registration. So here I am working a very, very long week, like a 50-hour week, and it is like past midnight, 1 or 2 a.m. at Franklin Elementary School in the Liberty Public School District. Liberty is also where they shot some scenes for Sometimes They Come Back, the Stephen King film. And so I'm going room to room, and I hear, I suddenly start hearing things. And I've always been a skeptic, but when something happens repeatedly, you start to shake off, whether it's coincidence or not. I started hearing a whisper from the hallway while I'm working in each of these rooms. And the terrifying thing was that I could not turn on the lights in the hallway. The rest of the building was pitch black because it used a special janitor key, which goes into the wall and turns them on. I did not have one of those. I could only turn on the individual classrooms. So I'm working on laptops, and I'd hear from out in the hallway, psst, clear as day, like someone's trying to get my attention. First time I get up, I go look, and I think it's maybe, the janitor. He and I were friendly, and I call his name. No answer. I go back to working, finish up in that room, move to the next room. Once again, psst. And this happens another 2 times. And by the 4th time that it happened, I start shutting the doors. And I knew that building very well. I knew it wasn't a machine or anything like that. So on my way out, though, by the time I had gotten to the end of the night, the mood was just awful. There was just something hanging over me. And I really wasn't sure what it was. But I got all the way down to the other end of the school building, and I had kind of this, that feeling when somebody's watching you,
Yeah.
like eyes on your back. That kind of times a million. I've never experienced it, and I've never experienced it again. And I got this very just quick, sudden feeling that I was not welcome, and I needed to leave. I'm holding a bunch of things in my arms. My flashlight is in my mouth to get through these pitch black hallways. And just as I adjust my flashlight in my mouth, and my back is to the cafeteria, I'm in the hallway, I'm locking up a room. Just as I adjust the flashlight in my mouth and mutter like, oh gosh, like, just kind of a curse under my breath that this is creepy, there's this huge bang, 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 steel on steel, the sound of something crashing into something else. And I whirled around, and had it been a horror movie, I would have been dead. I would have died right then and there, because I did what you should not do in those situations, and I froze, and I stared, and I cursed under my breath again. What in the world was that? And then, almost in reply, there was another bang, bang, bang from the cafeteria, like something inside was going ham on a pot with a ladle. I ran out of there as fast as I have ever run out of any building. I'm already running a little over on time, but there's more details to that story. We caught some shadows on the security footage. They did not, unfortunately, because the position of the camera, catch me getting shocked, but they did catch me booking it out of there really fast.
Wow.
Now, maybe you weren't welcome there, but you've been welcome here tonight, Austin. So
thank you so much. It has been wonderful.
You have a wonderful evening, and thank you for sharing your talent with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty, Carolee. We have Carolee Carrington, author and entrepreneur, literacy advocate, founder of Read with Carolee Incorporated, talking tonight about children having access to diverse literature. And you're going to read from your book. Hi, Carolee. How are you?
Hello, how are you? I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
We're saving the best for last. See, last but not least. So what do you want to share with us tonight, Carolee?
Well, I just really want to share about, Read with Carolee and my inspiration to getting into children's literature. I didn't always think that I would be in children's literature. This was actually the farthest thing from my mind to getting into, but this has been a great journey for me. Everything started for me with my son, who was in kindergarten and was unfortunately told that he should only play with children of his own skin color. And that was something that didn't sit well with me or my family. Coming from a mixed background, that definitely didn't sit well. So I was kind of inspired to write this story, Everyone Just Like Me. And my mom, who was a literacy coach, really encouraged me to get this story out there, for all children, because I wanted to make sure that the stories that were being told and the things that were being told to children were, inclusive. So it kind of really, took shape from there. I have created a children's show where I have other authors come on and share their stories, as well as, really delving into sort of the advocacy world, really trying to get books for children that really help them to feel seen. really getting into the world of children's literature and seeing the statistics about, there only being right now about 12% of books that are written for children that have protagonists that are children of color. So that really sparked something for me. I didn't think that in 2022 that should be the statistic, where you have more
Crazy.
animals being written about than children that really need to feel seen.
Well, and it's so important. I mean, to have children at that age understand exactly everything you're addressing. I mean, it's those formative years where they have to
Yes.
understand that we're all the same.
Yes.
So.
And it really tied into kind of bullying with me. I felt that there are so many things that children don't understand, and that's really the key to bullying. I believe it's, if you don't understand something, it's strange to you, so you think it's not good, or it's not like me, so I should shun it or bully it, or so even having children with disabilities or from different cultures and backgrounds, the United States is basically the melting pot of the world. So why aren't we having more of a melting pot with children's literature? We have courses, or they teach about anti-bullying when it comes to middle school, but having this background, I believe, in the formative years, as you said, it's so important.
It's the core of who we are. I mean, it's and how could you not address the core of who we are? How could we not have addressed the core all these centuries?
Exactly. Exactly.
Do you have any recommendations for books with diversity for parents to read to their kids?
Well, there are a lot of different books with diversities that I can't really just recommend one. Of course, I would recommend my book, Everyone Just Like Me.
Of course.
And my second book, Pretty Here, let me get it right here, that really tries to teach children about, especially girls, about loving themselves, and that they don't really need to try to be like anyone else. But there are definitely a lot of books that have come out over the past few years. And, you can check out my show on YouTube, Read with Carolee, and I've been able to get a lot of authors that address this same topic from around the world. Unfortunately, it's not just the US that deals with this problem. We have a lot of authors that are addressing this problem now. I even had an author from Australia. She wrote a book, with animals, but the book is We All Quack the Same, and it's showing different species or different types of ducks that are having kind of an identity crisis, because they want to go ahead and play with a duck that may be taller, and there's some that want to play with ducks that are more round, and they're being told, no, you should go with your own species of ducks, or your
Right.
own kind of ducks. So we need to all come together, and we all quack the same, so there shouldn't be a differentiation for us.
No, we should definitely focus on what makes us the same. That's the point. Well, your book about the young girls, that covers not just cultural diversity, but gender unity, and how, I mean, young African American women, I would assume, and this has not been my experience, but they deal with a double dose of issues, correct?
Yes, we deal with race, we deal with the gender identities, and we're being told, okay, all right, you should do this because you're a woman or you're a girl, and you should do this because you are of a different skin color. But when it boils down, if we take our skin off. We are all the same underneath. We all bleed red.
And it sounds, to many that would sound trite, but it just doesn't get any simpler than that. That's
Exactly.
the bottom line. So, AG,
Yeah.
do you want to have a question?
No, I'm just I'm really I'm listening, and it's so fascinating. Yeah, and I totally support this message of people coming together and supporting each other regardless of the external appearance. So I think we need more authors spreading this message, because that's something that's really timely right now.
Yeah, now more than ever. I mean, it's really, it sounds so silly, so trite, but it's basic. It's our human nature to really get along and to understand each other. And I don't think the world is going to, go any further in any positive way unless we really, really start doing that, and really, really doing that, to focus on what makes us the same, not to ignore the differences, to celebrate the differences,
Exactly.
which your books do, and to focus on what makes us the same, which is our humanity.
Yes.
I have one question. What's happening at founder of Read with what's happening at Read with Carolee? So how do you encourage people? I guess, right? That's the idea, to encourage people to read and the love for books.
Yes. Well, as I said, Read with Carolee has kind of snowballed into this avenue for authors and parents and educators and children to really be able to come together. I've actually started in the past couple of weeks. We actually had our kickoff for our Read with Carolee road trip, which is a tour that I'm having down the East Coast right now. We started it right here in Northern Virginia, and we're really connecting the community authors with their community. We were able to have about 20 children's authors come out, and we had, the community come in to really get to know the authors that are right in their backyard. And so that is kind of the second part of Read with Carolee. As a self-published author, I understand that not all authors have the backing to be able to get themselves out there, to be able to connect with the community, because, they may have full-time jobs and they have, their other lives. So
Hold on one second, Carolee. Let's have them connect with you right now, and let's have you read one of your passages.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, I will read a little from Everyone Just Like Me.
Hold it up again, Carolee. Hold the book up again. Okay, Everyone Just Like Me. Got it.
Yes. Okay, I'm going to get right to the beginning. Joshua was feeling sad and had to get glasses. He felt different. He would be the only one in his class with glasses. Joshua didn't like to feel different. He thought everyone would laugh at him in his new glasses. So Joshua had an idea. That night, Joshua looked out of his window. He searched and searched for a wishing star. Joshua found a star that twinkled brightly and made his perfect wish. I wish everyone was just like me, he thought. No one would tease me now. The next morning, Joshua boarded his bus for school. To his surprise, everyone on the bus looked just like he did. And best of all, everyone wore glasses. Hi, Joshua, they all rang out. Joshua smiled and took a seat. Every seat was perfect, he thought, because everyone is just like me. In his class, everyone wanted to sit next to Chester the class fish. At lunch, everyone asked for his favorite peanut butter and banana sandwich with a side of pickle. By the time it was his turn, there were no more bananas or pickles. All he had was a peanut butter sandwich. That might get stuck to the roof of his mouth. At recess, everyone wanted to play on the swings. There was even a long line at the slide. Everyone wanted the same things. Though everyone was just like him, Joshua started to feel alone. That night, Joshua saw another wishing star. This time, he wished to have a friend that was not so much like him. The next day, hold on, I think we skipped a page. Oh, actually. The next day, Joshua went to school and saw his friend Caleb and thought, this is great. Caleb isn't just like me. I could sit next to him in class. But everyone who was still just like Joshua thought the same thing. Everyone wanted to sit next to Caleb at lunch, and they all wanted to play with him at recess. Having everyone wanting to play with him, Caleb thought, was just too much. So Caleb decided to play alone. That night, Joshua peered out of his window, searching for a wishing star, but it was cloudy and it was hard to find any star in sight. Just as he was about to give up, Joshua saw a clear spot with a little twinkle in the sky. He thought, a little twinkle for my big wish. And you're going to have to get the book to hear the end.
Oh, sweet. That's lovely. Just lovely.
Yes.
Thank you, Carolee, so much. I think that obviously your message is the most impactful. And I think it's something that's on everyone's mind. And our minds all need to be elevated. So
Yes, absolutely.
AJ?
Thank you so much. It's been lovely having you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Peace.
Thank you,
Yes,
Carrie
hooray.
Lee. Thank you so much. I love that. Thank you. Thank you. You have a wonderful evening, my dear. Thank you for sharing your book and your reading. And everybody's got to check out her podcast too.
Oh, yes.
It's just amazing.
Yes, I bet.
All right. Good night, dear. All right, guys. How exciting was that? That was amazing.
That was great. That was awesome.
It always gives me a thrill when we do this because we do have such a diverse array of writers and authors, and especially this time of year when you kind of have all of these spooky themes and everything. So
Yeah.
I think is really, it's sometimes it feels like a roller coaster ride to go from scary poetry to a children's story, but that's what we're all about. So,
well, should we do that giveaway of my books? Should we try the contest?
Well, let's do that.
Okay, everybody.
Do what you would like to do there. And then I'll announce the winners of our giveaway.
Okay. I'm dressed up tonight as what famous film director? If you can pick out that film director that I'm dressed as tonight, scarf, glasses, gray hair, I will give you a copy of one of my Bewitched books. Whoever guesses it. So how do you take it from there, Desiree?
All right. So I think that means people email you and tell you the answer. Is that how you want to do it?
I guess we could do that. I guess they could email me through my website, herbiejpilato.com. If you have an answer of who you think I am dressed up as tonight, again, scarf, glasses, gray hair, film director, 60s, 70s, just email me through my website and I'll give you a copy of one of my Bewitched books.
I love it. I love it. So that's herbiejpilato.com. I'm saying that again so that Juana or somebody behind the scenes can put that in the chat so people know to go there and find your email address and enter your contest that way. And Herbie, I wanted to ask you really quick too, to tell us a little bit more about your books. And I just had to say that when we were talking about the Salem witch trials and stuff like that, I thought for sure you're going to bring up Bewitched. I thought for sure you're going to go there.
I brought it up like 9 times tonight. I thought that if I brought it up a 10th time, that would be a little much. But yes, I'm very, the Bewitched books obviously have been very special for me. They kicked off my career. And if any young or aspiring writer is looking to write a book, I would recommend you get a book called, especially nonfiction or fiction actually, How to Write a Book Proposal by Michael Larson. It's an awesome book. But as far as my newest book, it has to do with Christmas, and I just happen to have it here. It's the 12 Best Secrets of Christmas. This is the paperback edition, and it's a hardcover edition. And as I said at the beginning of the evening tonight, it's a very special book for me because it's so different than anything I've done. It's not entertainment geared. It's life's little instruction book meets everything I know I learned in kindergarten with a Christmas twist is what it is.
I love that. I love that. AG, tell us what you got going on. Go ahead, send everybody your website details and your bookish info.
Sure. Yeah. If you want to connect with me, you can go to my website, which is www.agbillig.com. And if you subscribe to my newsletter, you would get a short story collection, which is called 4 Doors and Other Stories. And you can also find my books there. And that's pretty much it for now. I'm still working on my women's fiction trilogy, so that's a long project, but yeah.
Well, we'll have you back on the Book Fest to talk about that when it's ready. Okay, how's that sound?
Oh, that's the perfect gift. You already gave me my Christmas gift, Desiree. Thank you.
Desiree and Dave, thank you really so much for having us here tonight. It's been a pleasure, and my little friend enjoyed it too, and my other little friend over here, the jack-o'-lantern. So
you guys are great, great hosts, great speakers, great people reading. This was brought to you by the Horror Writers Association, and here it is, guys. We have the big bundle of books giveaway winners. Okay, there's the drum roll.
Right.
All right, I'm gonna start with the 4th place prize first. I'm not gonna read their whole names. You'll get an email too, guys. So if you're like, oh, is that me or not? Just watch your inbox for that email. But the 4th place prize is Isabella V. Isabella V. Congratulations. Woo. 3rd place is Harley B. Harley like the motorcycle. Vroom, vroom. Congratulations. 2nd place is Tara B. Congratulations, Tara B. You got the 2nd place prize in the big bundle of books giveaway. And 1st place goes to Tracy with an I. Oh, yeah. So again, you guys watch your inbox to get that email letting you know that it's you that won. Because we had thousands of entrants. Literally thousands of people entered to win that giveaway. And then we have the children's book giveaways. Now there's 3 prizes in the children's book giveaways. So number 3 is Jennifer K. Congratulations, Jennifer K. 2nd place, Magnolia, like the flower, H. And the 1st place goes to Mark W. Congratulations, guys. And I guess to your kids or the kids in your life, because they're the ones that are really going to enjoy those children's book giveaways. Thank you again, everybody. Herbie J, AG, you guys are awesome. We're going to be back tomorrow, and we're going to have more fun because on day 2 of the Book Fest, we always lean over to the writers. Herbie was talking about book proposals, so we're going to be talking about stuff like that tomorrow on the Book Fest Adventure Fall 2022.
Fantastic. Good night, everybody.
Good night. Bye.